Hello, good evening. Tonight I will speak about a grimoire that I have written called Asmodeus. Asmodeus is a character in this grimoire, the main character, as well as to say, it is not a description of my character. As I've said, it is a story. Say, Asmodeus comes with a story, comes with a certain presence as well, or allure, or however you want to call it. No, to say, it is not a simple story to say, we have the character, it's just a story about that character, no? So, in the case of Asmodeus and being a grimoire, it is a specific genre and it is a little bit different, no? I would say what one expects when reads the Grimoire of Asmodeus, no? To say, it does include many different things, but I think the qualities which are most beautiful when it comes to Asmodeus, it is in his representation, no? So who Asmodeus is and how he, the fact that he represents himself, it means the way he is as well, no? So the element of the king, so King Asmodeus is a very important element, of course, no? So it goes to his name, but as I've explained in the other recording, the name Asmodeus comes after the element of king. It's almost like it has a higher value even as the value of the king, no? So to say, say he's a king and not really, it could have this meaning as well. It's not necessarily to say it takes or gives from the value of that, so what we imagine as king too, it's a little bit to say different descriptions in different parts as well, no? So on the literary aspect of the grimoire, say my works are literally works, as a poetic type of hymn verses that I write my grimoires, that they speak about that elevation of to say, it is not a simple story, no? Or the story has different storylines, or say it is a longer journey, or it is maybe the landscapes change, or there's different scenes. There's a lot of freedom in that too, that part that comes, no? Or different times or different aspects, or say, but in the Grimoire of Asmodeus, there's a very clear line. It is different. And it has 200 pages. It's a grimoire, so say it does not have necessarily it's like a more smaller, medium size of a book, no? But interestingly, through the language or through that aspect of the thematic as well, it gives a lot in those pages. Or in those pages, one finds very beautiful descriptions too, no? And I think from the beginning, the thematic of Asmodeus is very interesting. It is a very interesting thematic, like from the get-go or from that element, no? And there's a lot of beauty that comes to Asmodeus as well. There's definitely the element of beauty, say in his name, the part Asmo, the beginning part of his name, speaks to that element of beauty. And we have spoken in the other recording about the different colors. To say, they say the number 2 or the number 4 or the number 8 always comes forward when it comes to Asmodeus in one way or another, no? One can find different examples that we discussed as well, but it is an interesting aspect, no? That one can find, of course, further meaning. The aspect of the color, I say it's important aspect, and I think it represents very well. Now there's a certain simplicity, a certain order that comes to the type of knowledge, and it gives us a nice clarity. It gives a nice result. No, so it is that element of say, one exactly as writing the book, one works on the book, and then finally it's ready. It is that element to say my book of Asmodeus, the Grimoire, is published, and one can read in paper, no? And that's to say, the Grimoire of Asmodeus or the Book of Asmodeus. And in these recordings that I have created a playlist for the Book of Asmodeus is to talk about the book as well, about the character in my book, Asmodeus, or King Asmodeus, no? And as I've said, it's almost hard to choose one specific thematic only because Asmodeus carries more or different thematics, or one finds meaning. Sometimes the meaning moves from one thematic to another, no? So to say, well, the element of some say Asmodeus is very intelligent and highly intelligent, or that element that always comes through, no? We can describe it too as something more artistic or poetic, that he has that part, but it is not the main part of Asmodeus. No, it's not necessarily he cares about that aspect, but that's what it comes through. That's what one can see, no, in those elements that represent him. But it's very different too from how he is, no, personality-wise, or from the character point of view. And that's why I say always, one has to read the grimoire. Say, well, even the thematic can get confusing, no? They say, well, if it's part of that book, then it is part of that, no? As to say, it's not necessarily that the clarity gives the answer. So, the aspect of Asmodeus, it's always an interesting aspect, especially on the element of the intellect. But what I find more intriguing and more beautiful is the artistic part, the poetic part that I included too in the text. And that lyrical part too is, so to say, part of the story as well, no? And we have spoken too about the different elements in nature that one finds, no, through the four colors. It's well, the blue, the white, the violet, and the dark, with specific differences or specific meaning, no, that one refers to the words, or say what they represent as well as a symbol, or what they, tell us too about Asmodeus, no? It is that element too of his name, or the element of the way he appears, or the way his personality is, no? There are different aspects of Asmodeus that of course are very interesting, but to say, well, the book is not focused or characterized on those specifics, no? It is, would say, the main is to say, well, the characterization of the character, no, but in a lyrical, poetical way, or to say in a certain way as well. And then we say, well, the story that carries, no. So sometimes the story cannot not necessarily be told, or not fully, or there is the storyline, no. But so well, each grimoire is a little bit different as well. How I approach the thematic, or how I, but the form, the hymnal form I recreate in each grimoire. That's, so to say, a composition or something that is very symmetrical to the other grimoires as well, no? And of course, the thematics being different, there are different stories or different meaning to the characters as well. But it's not a representation of the character. It's not that I'm describing Asmodeus. It is, as I've said, a lyrical hymn verse that tells the story, say a literary work that I created now for Asmodeus through this poetic or more lyrical type of language, as well as I've said, a more softer breeze, or a more softer understanding, no? There are, so to say, different parts of Asmodeus. They say, well, even that simplicity creates a certain type of complexity that's very interesting, no? That one can find complexity in the simplicity, or say when, more complex things can be explained in an easier way or more understandable way, no? There's this element of the something moves forward, and maybe it moves back, or something like that, no? Or the meaning can change as well through the words, no? It's very much part of the storytelling, very much part of a book. And in the case of the grimoire, I think the part that makes it interesting is that the characters carry, already the story, or there is a part of the story, and say it inspires the writer somehow to write the book, or the writer decides for a specific character as well, no? Say, well, the part of the story does, create a part of the meaning, for the story as well, or for the character. And in the case of Asmodeus, I think to say, well, the palette of the colors or the element that appear too, no, gives a certain ambience that is like very nice for the element of, or say, well, for the book itself, no, it gives that part. And the colors or the other aspects too, one has to also say meditate or understand too, no, or to say, well, to have the right understanding or to have the right words when one writes the grimoire, writes the book, no, it's very much concentrated on the text as well as on the meaning, no, as well as on the characterization of the character, as well. Then it moves into the main storyline, no, that say it's represented, no, in a more free way. There's element of the story, and then so the book continues, no. So the element of the pages, you say, well, yes, 200 pages, but depends how fast or how slow one reads as well, no. It does not necessarily mean that it's a fast read, no. The number of pages depends too. Say, well, if one enjoys to read it, or if that element, of course, the enjoyment of the book or of the story. And specifically for Asmodeus, I think the text is, how you say, very almost like direct, or there is a certain clarity or certain even if it's poetic, no, it's still very clear. It's an interesting combination of those elements that create a certain relaxation, or something that one can read and enjoy reading. That's how I try to write the Grimoire of Asmodeus, as well, to give that simplicity or to give that depth to the story, or the element of potent or potency, no, or the element of the of course, the landscape or environments that appear in the book. So I'd say, well, it does, of course, the grimoire carries these elements, and I think, combined, or say, well, the element of writing can, or creates that beautiful story as well. Thank you so much for listening. I will continue another time. There is the Book of Asmodeus. If one is interested, there is a link in the description box below, as well as the playlist for Asmodeus. Thank you so much for listening. I will continue another time. Bye.